welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Berlindi. As always, that's John Rauhaus playing in the background. I'm going to keep these intros brief this month. I know that will please many of you. Anna Vogelzang, an incredible singer-songwriter out of Chicago, is on the podcast today. She's got a new record coming called Afterglow. Our friend Anthony DaCosta is heavily involved, and there's a Kickstarter for Afterglow going right now. I wanted to talk to Anna all about what she's up to, her life in Chicago, and so much more. I met her at the Fretboard Summit. You can meet her at the 2025 Fretboard Summit. It's going to be amazing. Go to fretboardsummit.org to sign up. Our 56th issue is mailing right now to everybody. I hope everybody out there is subscribed, and next week, I imagine you'll start opening your mailboxes and seeing it. It's going to be a beautiful thing. One of my favorite issues we've ever put out. Our podcast is sponsored by our friends at Peghead Nation, Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, and Stringjoy Strings. Thanks as always for tuning in. Here is my conversation with Anna Vogelzang on songwriting, motherhood, so much more. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Anna, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Just to set the record straight, how should everyone always pronounce your last name?
It's just how it looks. Vogelzang.
Okay.
I know it's tough. I just got a haircut and my hairdresser was asking me about the single and I was like, she's like, is it on Spotify? I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, so it's just, I look up Anna and I was like, oh, you don't know how to say my name. We've known each other for 5 years. It's okay. It's okay.
I want to set the record straight.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's it. Vogelzang.
So you and I officially met at the last Chicago Fretboard Summit 2024.
Which was the best. I had the
Thank
best
you.
time that weekend. And I very sheepishly walked up to you and I was like, hi, you know my friends.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing is like this little Fretboard Journal community is wide, but pretty tight knit. And you knew a bunch of the same people that we've had on this podcast before. And then it sounds like you're now actually teaching at the Old Town School of Folk Music once in a while.
Every once in a while. Yeah. I started a new project called Songwriting for Moms, which kind of came about as a joke. But actually I made that connection because of Fretboard Summit, because I met John at standing there. I was chatting with Joe Henry and then John was standing there and I said something to Joe about, well, the greatest thing about this weekend is that I haven't spent much time here. I live in Chicago, but I haven't spent much time at Old Town. And so even if I just make a connection with the venue, that's so great. And John Hubert turned to me and said, this venue? And I was like, yeah. He's like, who are you? What's going on? And then we just started chatting and then we had some meetings and then, so I've been doing, and actually in next month, I'm going to be doing like a not for moms, but just a big old creativity workshop. So recultivating creative practice and kind of recentering that for people who've either lost their creative mojo or want just to like kind of jump back into making a record or whatever the thing is that they're working on, couched in songwriting.
Well, I hope that one of these ideas resurfaces in August at the summit and that you do some teaching there.
I would love that.
You're not originally from Chicago, right?
Correct. I grew up in Massachusetts and then I ended up in Madison, Wisconsin for 8 years. And that was like the bulk of my starting out touring life. And then I was in Los Angeles and now we're here. In Chicago, and I am hoping we're here for good. It's a lot of moving around, and it's hard to. Every time you move, it sucks. Like you have to reestablish. I was just talking to a friend about finding like a local band for my album release show here in Chicago in June, and I'm like kind of like spinning my wheels a little bit because I'm like I just want to fly in all these people,
sure.
And it's like, well, that's not an answer long term, right? So no, it's taken me a long time to feel like I belong to a place, if that makes sense. But also, I feel like every time I'm in a place, I'm like, okay, this is my place now. Like that. Sure. That's what LA felt like, and Madison before that. So,
well, there's nothing like raising a kid in a place to feel like you're putting down roots. So that part of the equation, at least, I think you got figured out.
Absolutely, yeah. I think having my kid in LA changed LA for me. Like the experience of LA, the people I met, the music I made when I was in LA. It was like I was pregnant when we made that record. I had a record come out in 2019 called Beacon, but we made it in 2017 and I was super duper pregnant. And it was such a, like, I don't think I would have rushed to make the record. Like I intentionally my friend Anais Mitchell had made this record when she was pregnant with her daughter and had told me about it, where she was like, yeah, when I was pregnant, I went into the studio and I made this solo record, like this, I think it was called XOA. And it was basically like she stockpiled a project so that once the baby was born, she would have something to be working on and towards for the next couple of years. And I was like, and I put that in my little lizard brain. I was like, I have to do that. And so then we actually had already started it, and then I got pregnant, and then I was like, okay, we gotta finish it. So that was the impetus. But it was a very different time of my life. And we were there for a little over like 3.5, almost 4 years. And I think that I now look at that time with such rosy glasses on, because it was like you have your first kid and everything's kind of, you see the world differently. Everything's a little bit magical. I was making music with like my heroes and now dear friends. Like it just was this like, it was so ideal. It was sunny all the time. It's like LA ruled. And then we had to move and it was really hard. It was really hard. But I do feel 5 years later, now we're in Chicago and I feel like I'm finally, I just said to a friend today on text, we were texting about the Chicago music scene and he was like, you got to get out to a show. And I was like, I feel like I'm just starting to re-enter the world. Like, I think everybody came back in 22 and I've just been taking a lot longer to like tiptoe my way out into public.
You never did Nashville.
Nope. And you know what's funny? I said to my husband, he just, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this publicly. I'm sure I am. He just got tenure at his job.
Oh, congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. And when you're up for tenure, so it's been like a year-long process. He's in academia. You often job shop so that you can kind of like be like, hey, I got this offer. What about this? Like, how about this money? You do that thing. And I told him like, the only place I would move is Nashville.
Oh, like, I was just joking.
I know. But I actually do feel like it is one of those cities where I know so many people that it would be a transition to be like, oh, I'm amongst my friends and people. I don't know if I'd want to raise a kid in Tennessee, but that's a different question.
Yeah.
But
you have this like ever growing, as you've moved around the country, network of musicians and fellow songwriters. But I feel like a big part of your whole being, and certainly you're now doing it at Old Town, is sort of these like songwriting groups. It seems like a big part of your life and probably a great way to feel connected both locally and with people from around the world. When did that all kind of start? Like, when did you go from just like, I'm going to write a song in my living room to like, I'm going to bring others into the equation?
That's a good question. I think my brain went to two different places when you said that. The first was that I've been really involved in rock and roll camp for girls across the country. So when I lived in Madison, that was kind of my outlet for that, was teaching and also like being around this creative force that was young kids. And it felt like my sweet spot, like teaching a band of 11-year-old kids how to learn their instruments, but write an original song, then go into the studio, because we always have them do a full recording session and then a live show. I was like, this is exactly what I know how to do. And it really fed that part of me. And then we moved to LA and I got really involved with RCGLA, Rock Camp for Girls LA. And so I was having that same outlet, but it started because of Adam Levy, because I got to LA. Adam and I knew each other peripherally through, I think, Takasta. And then I went to an Ani show because Todd Sikafus is a dear friend of mine, and he produced my record before I moved to LA. So he was on tour with Ani, and Adam had come to see Todd, and Todd was like, hey, you guys need to be friends. And so he introduced us at this Ani show. I just moved there like a month before. Adam and I went to Kitchen Mouse. We got breakfast tacos, and we started talking about this idea of a song a week, because Adam had been part of a songwriting group for a long time and then stopped. And I had done like a YouTube version of that another folk musician had started in like 2014. So I was like, yeah, I haven't really done a song a week for a couple of years, but man, wouldn't that be so awesome? And then we started talking about, there's a scene in East Nashville where I don't know if it still is happening, but they called it the East Nashville Song Salon. And so you could come to this person's house and like share your song for feedback. But it also had that, I don't know, that Nashville, like it seemed untouchable to us. And Adam was like, I would totally do that. I just don't have the space. And I was like, I have the space, and which is so funny now because like my house was 800 square feet, but I was like,
Hey,
I have the space in LA. That's the space, right? And so I was like, okay, sorry, I'm jumping on my yoga ball, which
it's
is
all
really
right.
crazy noises. So he was like, oh, that'd be cool. And so we just started talking about this idea of like, what if we had essentially like a creative group meant for workshop, but also accountability. Because the goal would be, especially for me and Adam, the goal was to write a song for the workshop every week. And so we started it and we called it the NELA Song Salon, Northeast LA Song Salon, because Adam and I lived really close to each other. And it became this like, I mean, I had no idea that it would change my life. It changed my life. It like was so amazing. And I've said this before to many people, but I feel like I owe every good thing that happened to me in LA to Adam Levy. Like Song Salon was like us having breakfast and being like, yeah, let's try this thing. And then it went all 3 years that we lived there. I took a little break when my son was born, but then we just kept going. Like even though he was like asleep in the next room, it was every Monday night. We had tons of amazing. I mean, the thing about LA is like so many working musicians are hanging out when they're not working, right? So it was like we just had this really great. I mean, that's how I know Sophia Wolfson. Like Sophia was a friend of Mason Stoops, who was playing guitar with me on a thing, and then he was like, you should invite my friend Sophia to your thing. And so then Sophia came to that. I mean, Maddie Cunningham. It was like this rotation of just people, Theo Katzman, like it was just like friends. Everybody, we all knew each other in the scene, but it was like, I mean, and I look back on it now and I think I would do it very differently. We had like rules. It was like, please email your song and I'll print it so that everybody can like make notes on
Oh
the,
yeah.
and like, please like use the house guitar. Don't bring your own guitar because it's too crowded. Like we literally didn't have the space. Like we
I
could
was gonna say 800 square feet. How many people did you cram in at any? Like, what was the biggest?
The biggest was probably like 13, which
Okay.
we didn't even have seating for. Like my couch only sat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 if you squish. I remember like Olivia Gerber, A.O. Gerber would like smoosh into the corner. It was just like, and then like some people played keyboards. So like every other week someone would bring like a keyboard. It just was nuts. Like, but it had its own momentum. And actually it was funny because Adam and I had to have a meeting where we were like, how do we stop it from getting bigger? Like, what do we
Yeah.
do? And then like a month later, it was like crickets. Like everyone was working or on tour or whatever. And then we were like, wait, come back. Like
Sure.
it had its own movement. But then, that thing, it just turned into like having like sharing shows with these folks, like co-bills with people. I played all of the songs I wrote for Beacon were from that group. And I had all of the feedback from all of these great people being like, what about like this bridge doesn't make sense to me? Or like this line is, what if you tried this? And I got to take that feedback into the recording studio. Right. So like, it just felt like I was constantly being supported by all of these musicians that I adored, and that they all had kind of like a hand in this record at the time. And then we capped it once I knew I had to move. We pitched it to the Bootleg Theater, and I remember them saying like this isn't. I don't know. Like our summer's really booked up. Let's try to do the fall. And we were moving in like September 1st or something,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. He's like, well, I have 3 weeks in June, but not all 4. And I was like, well, here's the roster of the people who do this, and it's like Sarah Watkins, Leslie Stevens,
Yeah.
like it just was this like
Who's
great
who?
list. And he was like, oh, okay, let's do June. I was like, okay, great. So we did this awesome, I think we called it the salon residency at the Bootleg. And it was like kind of like a song salon. We did Adam and I on stage the whole time. And then we had 2 people up with us, and everybody did 2 songs. And then there was like a special guest who did like 3 songs, and then another special guest. And then we did another in the round. And we tried to pack as many people in a night as we could. So I think we had 6 or 8 performers other than me and Adam, all 3. So it was like 24 people ended up doing it. It was freaking amazing. It was like, there was timing. It was like timing and confluence and magic. And then also just, I think it speaks to the spirit of creativity that happens in LA, where like, even though I do agree with the generalized notion that people in LA are kind of flaky, because that's absolutely true. it also, I think, speaks to like people are willing to try to be part of something. Like people want to be part of a group, part of like a collective in a good way. like like part of a collective that's making something that feels meaningful. And it just felt, yeah, it was and then we moved here right before COVID. So we moved here in like September of 2019, but I was really releasing my album at the time. And so I was like not really here. Like the end of that calendar year, I was in LA a lot. I had an LA release show. I just kept going back. And then we got here and my husband was like, what are you gonna do for like, you're gonna start a song salon again? And I was like, I don't know. And then COVID happened. And so then I tried my hand at a thing called Song Club last year and basically called the booking agent at Shuba's and I had a really nice relationship. And I was like, hey, Dan, can I just like bend your ear? I have this idea. And I wanted it to be, I didn't feel like that same magic was going to necessarily be recaptured anywhere. Like I was like, I don't want to try and do the same thing again. But I also loved the residency so much that I felt like I have a decent hand at curation, like booking shows and like creating like a bill that makes sense and is interesting. And so I pitched it to Shuba's and he was like, absolutely. And we did 3 of them. And the one thing we changed was that instead of coming in with new songs, we had everybody just come in. We did essentially an in the round where I asked a lot of questions, kind of podcasty. My goal was to make it a podcast. I was asking a bunch of questions about the process for the artists, like you play a song and tell me about this process. And then everybody had a prompt and they had to write a song for the show and play something at the last round. And the idea was like, we're going to get people to stay for the whole show. And also like they'll see something that's never been released. Like this is like a true look behind the curtain. And so I think the first one was Flight and the second one was like, there was one that was Unwrap because that song actually made it onto my new record, which was crazy. But we did 3 of them. And then I had to it was a lot of work and I had to shift gears because we got back into making Afterglow, my new record Afterglow. And like, I can't do all these things. So it's on this hiatus right now. But that I think paired with the songwriting stuff at Old Town School, like there is, I know I'm going to find a sweet spot. Like I'm really taking my time because I love doing both things very much. And the Song Club thing is more of a curated show. And I love talking about songwriting with people. And it's not a workshop, right? Like that was my like pitch to everyone. I was like, this is not, there's no criticism allowed on stage.
Yeah.
Like this is like a community gathering where we talk about the nerdy things we love about songwriting. And then we try to share something new with the audience and like give them a peek into what our process is like. Right. I'm in between those 2 things right now, it feels like.
Okay. So for anyone coming to the Fretboard Summit in August, now is the time to speak up and let us know what your dream songwriting workshop, concert, whatever is, because you'll be there, Sophia will be there, and there's still a blank canvas where we can have some fun plotting this stuff out. I know that all these songwriting groups, I feel like this has come up a few times with like Matt the Electrician and some other folks we've interviewed over the years. There's these prompts, which you just described. How you've got this new record, Afterglow, you self-produced it. We're going to talk all about it. Anthony DeCosta's got a big part in it.
Anthony produced it.
Yeah, you are self-releasing it though. Sorry.
Exactly, yeah. I just don't want him to feel snubbed.
No. Anthony, you're amazing.
Anthony, we love you.
What can you trace the album as a whole to like one prompt or a vibe or like something that you challenged yourself with?
It's so crazy that you just mentioned Matt because I'm in his song game.
Oh, okay.
So that's it. You just answered it. So Matt the Electrician runs a song game. Matt and I are old friends. Okay. He runs a song game where every week he gives us a prompt. And it's like this, I will tell you it's Friday, right? So it's today. So the prompt today that I'm supposed to write a song is killer. It's called Find the Killer. And the way that's today's prompt, legit. And the way he does the prompt is like, it's supposed to be the title of your song, which means it can show up in the song, or you can write to the title, but ideally you're supposed to smoosh these words into your song. And he's written some really great emails being like, hey guys, I'm noticing nobody's really writing the prompt. Like the point of this is to write a song around something that you think you cannot write to. Like the point of this is to stretch yourself and try to make it work. So in 2020 at Folk Alliance, I ran into Matt and our mutual friend Laura Cortese, and she walked over and she was like, oh no, Matt, it's Friday. I don't even want to look at you. I haven't done my song for today. And I was like, oh, are you doing a song game? And because I knew he was in, I think it's like Bob Snyder's song game. Like he's in like some other song game where if you don't write that week, you're kicked out. Like he's in this like crazy, he's been in it for like 20 years.
I think he talked about it. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, who would do anyway? But he started his own. And again, like 15 years ago, like a lot, it's been running a really long time. And so I said, oh man, I'd love to do that with you. Like I just left LA. I had this song a week thing with Adam at my house, but in the meantime, and he was like, yeah. And then Folk Alliance always happens in February. I got home. It was like the first week of March of 2020. And I was like, hey, Matt, I'm in. Like, put me in your game. And he's like, okay. And then COVID happened. And so I had the weirdest thing about that time frame was I also came home to my Rubin guitar. This is my like Rubin rubber bridge.
Old style. Yeah.
My old style guitar baritone.
Yeah.
Because my in-laws had brought it from LA for me because they're in Southern California. So they had brought it from LA for me. So I got home from this tour. I did Folk Alliance. I did a little tour. It was like March 14th or something. And I got home and there was a new guitar sitting at my house and I had just joined Matt's game. And then it was like, ta-da. So the prompt, all of the songs on this record, there's 11 songs. They all came from the game. Like I wouldn't have, but the one, there's a song called 17 that's about me and this like giant love affair I had when I was 17. That song, I wrote it for Song Club, like the Shuba show, because there was like the prompt was unwrap. And I like had this idea. I actually like went into it at the show about, it reminded me of a John Mayer lyric, and that John Mayer lyric like defined this relationship for me. And then I was like, I'm going to write about this thing. But I also like wrote Matt's title into it. I don't remember what it was, but I like did a double. He does that often. He'll be like double duty today for both song games. But I never used to, I just sang with my friend Chris Purica. They were coming through here on tour at Space, and we were chatting, and I was like, yeah, it's funny because they were playing a show with Chris Delmhorst, and Delmhorst is in the game too. And I was looking at Chris's new vinyl, Delmhorst's vinyl, and like 3 of our song titles are the same from her new record and my new record because we're in the same game. And I was like, yeah, it's so crazy. And Purica was like, I could never do that. That seems like so not. And I was like, I used to be that way too. It was like, especially when I was starting out, I was like 19. I was like, everything has to be true. Everything has to be felt. And this is like a vessel for my emotions. Like this is therapy or whatever. And then you get to a point where you're like, no, it's not. It's a craft, and it's something that is. I feel like when I'm writing a song and I'm really in flow, it is like I'm putting together the best puzzle. I know, and then I can tell when I'm like almost to the point where everything is connecting and together. And then sometimes I'll come back and edit, and I'll be like, oh, this is a way to make this the through line, or this is I should do this thing harmonically here. But songwriting wise, like, I never would have considered myself a song a week person. And now that is actually the basis of all of my creativity stuff that I teach, like workshops and whatnot. It's like, how can you honor the work and make time for it? And for me, that number one answer is accountability. Ooh, sorry. I don't have a screen. I don't have a pop screen.
It's okay.
I just laughed right into the microphone. But for me, it's like, I need to be accountable to other people. I just know myself. It just makes me do it, show up.
And how are your executive function skills, if I don't mind asking? Like, do you get the song done early, or is it a cram right before Friday rolls around?
It's due Friday local time at midnight. And to be honest, I haven't done the last 3 because I've been so inundated. Well, I was in Portugal, as we were talking about. Yeah. And I kind of tapped out for the last couple of weeks, but I am I haven't started it yet. It's 2 p.m. on Friday. After my kids go to bed at 8, I will come down here to my studio and I will give myself a 20-minute timer. and I'll write something. And if I want to keep going, I will. And if I don't want to keep going, I won't. And it'll be what it is. Sometimes I turn in something that's like 45 seconds, but often it's like 2 to 3 minutes. And it's a lot of times what'll happen is if you get yourself to do it for 20 minutes, you'll hit a stride and then you're like, oh, I don't want to stop. I want to figure out the best way to finish this song. But I am like I think some of the best songs I've written in like under 10 minutes. Like I'm not like I can't. Sometimes I'll have a seed and then I'll be like, ooh, I have this melody in my head, and I'll come sit down and I'll try to follow it or whatever. But a lot of times it's because I sit down and make myself do something. And then if the wind is blowing the right way, the thing comes out and it's there. But I know that's not the way for everybody. Everybody is different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm a procrastinator to the end.
Well, at least you're in a laid back group, not one of these ones that militantly throws you out the minute you don't turn something in.
Actually, Matt wrote an email 2 weeks ago that was like, hey, everybody, I'm noticing everyone's kind of slacking. So we're going to do twice a year, he'll do if you don't do it this week, I'm going to kick you out. And then he also, a couple weeks ago, the email was like, can I just see who is still, do you still want to be here? Let me know that you want to be here because you're not really showing. And then everybody responded all like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to come back. I'm like, I'm here. I really don't, I want to stay in the game. Please don't you need that adult in the room to be like, hey, are we on task?
Totally.
Yeah. But it is, Matt has there are, it's really fun to be in the round with other people in the game because it'll be like, oh, we all have this song called King and Queen. Or we all have this, there are 2 or 3 songs that are not from the game. But again, I wrote them and then I smushed the game into them so that I could pass that week. But they span from 2020 till, what year is it right now? 5. So 2023.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I just did the math because we just made a Kickstarter video.
Oh, cool.
And, because that's going to go live in a couple of weeks. And I wrote 144 songs in that 3-year span.
Wow.
Which is wild. Yeah.
And the album has 12? 11.
Yeah. There is a 12th bonus version that you get if you do the Kickstarter.
All right. We'll include a link to the Kickstarter.
Yes. Thank you.
In the podcast notes. I think and maybe I'm just being the dumb guy, but I think when I heard this record, knowing that you teach songwriting for moms at Old Town School, hearing Hometown, hearing some of these other songs, I'm like, oh, this is a song of a reflective parent thinking about their kids growing up and themselves. And maybe that's every album that a parent writes for the rest of their lives. But hearing that these were just kind of random prompts from Matt the Electrician kind of puts a different perspective on it.
But it also is you can take that and thread it through your own needle, right?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, so Hometown was a prompt. That was the title. The prompt was Hometown, one word. And I have said on stage, that song in particular was kind of the first song where I knew I had a record. I was like, oh, okay. There's something here. And Anthony and I were just talking about that. He was like, that's the one that got me. And I was like,
yeah, it's my favorite song on the record.
Thank you. I love that. But the thing about that song was when I started, it's a direct address to my sister. And it is and then I kind of put one of my best friends in there too, when I started thinking about and I started thinking about who we were in our 20s and then in our teenage years. And I've said on stage where it's in my mind, I wanted to have this idea of drunk teenagers taking to the streets, running away from home, suburban. I preface that song on stage as this is a song about growing up in the suburbs, but it has this to me, that's where my mind was that was the scene I was setting in my own movie of my mind. And then I have said also on stage that it has now become clear to me that I'm the parent. It's my basement. My kids are going to get, or maybe, hopefully not, but I'm the parent in the suburbs, right? It's oh shit. I didn't even think about it while I was writing. It wasn't about my kids. There are lots of songs about my kids on here, but, and not even just about my kids, but really there are a lot of songs about how much becoming a parent changes you just across the board. And that's the topic sentence of the record, right? There are these things in life that you're oh, it's before this or after this. It was before I had kids, or it was after COVID, or it was whatever. And then this is like, who have you become in the after of all of the shit that has happened to you in the last whatever, or that not even has happened to you, but has happened in your life, you know? And parenting is one of the big lenses for sure. But in that, there are all these little not, I found myself, I think, to your point, reflecting back on my own teenage years and childhood. Like there's this song about 17, there's hometown, like they're like my hometown of Lexington, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the American Revolution. It shows up a lot. And I was like, why do I keep thinking about Lexington? But I think part of it is that exactly what you're saying. Like you're becoming reflective of your own past because you're looking forward to like, oh, where are my kids? What is their experience going to be? Or
Yeah.
is it going to be reflective of my own? And what like what mistakes did I make that I would like to do differently with them this time, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you had this collection of at least mostly finished songs, and then you approached Anthony DaCosta, who can kind of make every sort of sound under the sun when it comes to like a record, like, was it a free for all? Did you have a vision of like how you wanted it to sound, or records that you wanted to sound like?
Oh, not musically, no. I mean, we did do a lot of like, are there reference tracks, especially when I was like driving to Nashville. Um, I was like, oh, this song's great. Like, I was like, I love this Lucy Dacus song, or like, I love, you know, like I wanted there to be, I wanted to step out of anything precious. I knew that. But every time we would start talking about like references, Anthony would be like, you know what this sounds like to me? A fucking Anna Vogelzang record. like it was really helpful. Like it was, you know, there were, so Anthony helped pick the songs, you know, so I had this big batch and I narrowed it down to, I think, 20 something. And then when I went we did this in two sections. I just this week when we made the Kickstarter video, decided I was kind of going to talk about this publicly because I had a vocal injury and I've been not talking about it because it made me really worried that people would listen to the record trying to hear it.
Oh.
I was like, if I knew somebody like lost their voice. So I had this thing, it was freaky thing. I've been singing my whole life. I went to school for opera. Like I know my voice really well. I'm very versatile if I do toot my own horn. And I just lost it. I got laryngitis, but it just like didn't come back. And so it ended up being what they called a laryngeal nerve damage. So like I had had a really bad sickness and a virus attacked this is how the ENTs told me, the virus attacked one of the nerves in my larynx and I had to wait for the nerve to grow back, and nerves grow 2 millimeters a day. So it was 8 months until I got my range back. So I went to Nashville before that happened and we did 4 songs. And I knew, and Hometown was on there. My little sister was getting married. I wrote Searchlight the day they got engaged because my now brother-in-law proposed to my sister at a lighthouse. And so, and it just like came out. Like I was like, oh, well, there's a song. And so my intention was I wanted to record that song and put it out for her as like a gift, like a wedding gift. And I had thought, oh, Anthony's doing this new producing thing because this was 2022. He just kind of had started doing that. I was like, Anthony's doing this thing. That'd be so fun to make this with him. Oh, while I'm there, we should do this other couple songs, you know, whatever. So we did 2 days in the studio. We did 4 songs. I got home and I called him back and I was like, no, this is a whole record. And he's like, that's what I think too. And so we decided like we were going to keep going. And we had this I think for February or March, we had a session plan, same players, like just a couple months later, we were going to get back together and keep doing it. And we were tracking live and we didn't want it to sound different. And I honestly, like now I can't remember which, other than Searchlight and Hometown, I'm like, and 2 other songs, like, I don't even know, I can't hear the difference, which is great for me. But that was right when I got that injury, was February of 23. And so I didn't have my voice back until October, I think. And I went back down in October, like as soon as it was functional and I had my full range and I felt flexible again, we like rescheduled, but I had never had that kind of a disruption to my work ever. And I had never had that it was spooky. I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I was working with voice therapists every week and it was really shitty. And it's funny that like, I'm not quite sure why I didn't want people to know about it, other than like a little bit, I guess, of embarrassment of like, oh, I had to like go through this thing. But my best friend listened to like a draft of the Kickstarter video script. She was like, this sounds really formal. Are you telling your whole story? Like something's missing. And I was like, not telling the part about the vocal injury. She's like, why don't you? And she was like, oh my gosh, like everybody's had them. Like it's so great to hear that you like went through a thing. And even to the point, that was one of those things in life that happens that you then call before and like I'm like, well, that was before my vocal injury. Oh, that was after all of the voice therapy. Like, and Anthony was like, I feel like you came in sounding stronger than I've ever heard you. Like he was like, I can't believe how like strong your voice sounds after all of that. And I was like, and I felt that way too. It was gratefully, like I feel like it could have taken a lot longer or gone differently. And I felt really lucky that it resolved as it did.
Yeah. As the millimeters of regrowth happen, can you start singing again, or is it like, no, I have to wait until I'm 100% before I can belt out anything?
I was singing the whole time, but it's a range question. So actually I should find it at some point. I sent Anthony a voice memo of King and Queen where I jump an octave on the chorus and the verses are like da na 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 all in this low voice. It sounded great. And then I went to the chorus and I went but like there was just nothing in there. It was air, all air. I couldn't get my chords to touch each other to phonate. It was just, and he was like, well, it sounded great until the chorus. I was like, yeah, but that's what I'm dealing with. And so it wasn't even like a note a day, but it became clear. Like I was every day doing these vocal PT exercises essentially, where I was like, okay, where am I at today? Today I'm at an A and I should have up to a C above the C. Like I should have like a C6 or whatever that is, like the high C. 2 above middle C is where I should be able to sing. That's my range. And so until I got up to that point, and it's not like I'm using that voice in my stuff, right? But you actually, when you're singing, especially in your middle, you're pulling a lot of that vocal down. That range, even though you're not like singing operatically or singing a really high note, you're using that exact same part of your voice and you're like pulling it down and threading it through your middle. And that's one of the things that I have a lot of control over usually. And so to not have access to that, like it was just gone. And I was a lot of like, if I'm not singing, I mean, if I can't sing, who am I? That kind of thing. Cause I've been singing my whole life. So it was really scary and kind of wild. And I don't even remember what you asked at the beginning of this question.
No, I was just asking like if you could get back to work with it not being 100% or not, but it sounds like you kind of could. It wasn't going to harm anything.
It wasn't going to hurt anything, but I didn't want to make the record until it was so different. But I was playing shows. I did pull out of a couple shows that were like a long drive that kind of like not enough money where I was like, it's not worth the risk. I also I have a kids music gig. I teach preschool music. And that was always the like litmus. Like I can keep it. I could keep working there, but I would be like, oh, I can't play it in this key. I have to play it in this key kind of a thing.
Just certain kids, those preschoolers are like, what do you mean?
The nannies. It's the nannies you got to watch out for.
It's the nannies. Yeah. So this record, you're putting it out yourself.
Yes.
And we've got the Kickstarter we're linking to. And when is the official release date? Do you know?
June 13th, 2025. Okay. June 13th. I'm so excited because in numerology, June 13th, 2025 adds up to a 1. Which is I'm in a 1 year, which is the magician and the tarot. We could go into that, but we don't need to. But are
you going to do a tarot card reading at the Fretboard Summit?
I will. I'm doing it as part of my Kickstarter rewards. You can get a tarot reading with me on Zoom if you want. That's like one of the few it's like you can do a lesson, you can do a tarot, or you can come to like a Zoom workship.
Is this a whole nother side hustle that I didn't know about?
I have not done it publicly ever. I've done it a lot for friends and I do it a lot for myself, but there is so much tarot in my mind. There is so much imagery in this record that it's very connected. So it's like, why not just lean in? I had everybody pull a card at my Songwriting for Moms.
You and your prompts. Yeah. I was going to say.
Like pull a tarot card. Like, where does it sit with you? Do you resonate with it? Do you want to use that to write your little speed writing song? I'm very into it. But yes, I would be happy to do some tarot at Fretboard Summit. That would be amazing.
Is this another like secret among all these hipster musicians I know that everyone's into tarot? Or
yes, they really all. Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of people roll their eyes at it, but I feel like it's way more in the mainstream of hipsterdom, as you're referring to. Like it is in that hipsterdom mainstream now, which when I started doing it, the first year I ever pulled cards with a friend, my friend taught me how to do it. It was 2007. So, and now it's like you can find tarot decks everywhere and people love crystals. And like, I mean, my office is full of crystals, like
Okay. Yeah.
everywhere. That's just who I am. LA really brought that out in me. I learned a lot in my 4 years in LA. It was like, oh, like I would go to crystal workshops and tarot workshops and all that stuff. I was very active in that world for
How
sure.
much does it cost to get a custom tarot deck made? Has any musicians or is that verboten? Are you not supposed to do that?
No, you can totally do that. Actually, my designer who's done all this amazing graphic design on this record package and everything, we were on a call and she was like, Anna, why don't I just make you tarot cards? And I was like, you can't make a whole deck of just me. Like that seems insane.
Yeah. No, it's got to be.
And she's like, no, I'll just make you like one card. And then I was like, who wants to buy one tarot card at the merch table? Like nobody's going to buy. So we did a bandana and she like did this beautiful illustration of my face. But then in the four corners, she put stuff from the record. So she put a cauldron, she put like a crystal. One is the moon with some clouds, and then I can't remember what the other one is. Something witchy, and she made it look really witchy, which I appreciated. So there's witchy bandanas that you can get instead of. But we did talk about making tarot cards. It was definitely on the radar.
all the new angles to the Fretboard Summit. This is going to be a great year.
Bring your crystals, guys. Bring them to Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. Anna, you're always up to a bunch. Like, what else should we talk about?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Okay.
I think, the record's the thing right now.
The record is the thing.
The record is the thing. And I feel like I have, in my mature age now, I'm like realizing how many things I can say yes to and have to put down, especially because I'm like the primary parent in our house and I have two very little kids. So, there are like, for example, like Song Club at Shuba's, I was like, ooh, I got to step back. Like, I love this and I want to build something, but I'm not available enough to like, I think I'm a big believer that if you want to like be part of the community, you have to go to like every show. Like in LA, I was at shows 5 nights a week. Right. And that's how I met so many people. And it just was part of being part of the scene. And I just cannot physically do that right now with the way my life is set up. And so I was like, I think I just need to give myself like a year or two to like focus on making this record and putting it out. And to your point of like putting it out myself, that's been a big, shift for me as well, because we shopped it around and we had amazing feedback. Like I've been doing this for 20 years, right? Like this is I've shopped a lot of records in my day. This record got farther than any other record I've ever made, and I think it's a super strong. But the industry right now, I'm like treading very lightly. I don't want to be a dick, but we all know, like there's no money, right? Like if you're making something and you're putting it on Spotify, like you're never going to see that back. And so we got to these places with labels who I felt like were really amazing and could understand kind of like, this is my life. Like I'm going to prioritize working at home as much as I can. I still am going to tour. Like we're going to do a little release tour. Anthony and I are doing a release tour in June here in the Midwest, which I'm very excited about too. But, like I also live a life. Like I have this whole like home life that I need to at least respect, and like it has to be part of the picture. And I felt like every pitch I did, even with labels that I love who really loved this record, I felt like I was like trying to do a little tap dance. I was like, and I'll just like, yeah, I could just totally go on the road or whatever. And my manager and I got into these conversations after we would like get off the Zoom. She would be like, dude, do you mean that? Like, do you actually want to like go on a 2-month tour? And I was like, no, I could never do that. And she's like, well, then why are we doing this? Like, there was this like kind of reckoning in the shopping of it because I was so unhappy. Like, I just felt like I was trying to prove something. And I feel like this record it's there. Like, I believe in it so deeply. And I feel like it speaks for itself. Like, I'm like, it just is good. I think. Now, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Totally fine. But I don't feel the need to come on like to Zoom with a label and be like, this is why I think that this means something. And like, this is what I think it's doing. Like, I believe it speaks for itself. right? And which I think you have to hit that point at a certain point. Otherwise, you can't keep making shit and putting it in public because it just wrecks you. Like, because you're like, like you have to really believe in the thing. And so we kind of we shut it all down. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not trying to like reinvent the wheel. I'm not trying to become some like international star. Like, I want the people who know me and like my stuff. This is for them. It's also for other people who don't know me yet, but I can't put all my eggs in that basket of like, let me reach the vast millions. Like, I just want people to have it. And the way to get to that point, we decided, was to do it independently with a Kickstarter. Cause I was like, and I just was joking with some friends at Space last week of like, I was like, I've done all of my shame work in therapy about having to ask. I get it. I feel like I've gotten through it. It's really hard to ask, but I also feel, because I've also done my last Kickstarter was 10 years ago, and I've made a bunch of stuff since then, and I've done a bunch of life and work. And so there's this part of me that's like, oh, I shouldn't have to do this anymore. It should be more legit. But I've had this discussion with so many musician friends, which is like, it is so hard to make a living this way. and being on a label does not mean that you're making a living. Like it doesn't equate like, oh, and now I'm going to get paid, or like, oh, now I don't have to foot this bill. Like, it still is all kind of the same. And so when you give the people the power, like when you give your community the power to be your label, I mean, it's a huge ask, and it's a huge trust fall. But I also feel like that it's the same thing as I was saying with like Song Club or Song Salon in LA. Like, people want to be part of a community that is making something about goodness, right? Like, we all want to see each other in the light of goodness. We all want to support one another. And like, I think like, and like art's important. Like people should be paid. Like, it costs money to do this shit. And I do feel like, I have a really great Patreon community, and they've been kind of, I always say in my newsletter, like they've been keeping the lights on for 5 years, like actually more than 5 years. But that's been this like undercurrent of like, okay, this is how I'm going to make ends meet. And they've been along the ride of like, here's the draft of like every song on this record. Like, they have all the demos, they have all of the like work in progress voice memos. And now I feel like that's kind of the same energy that I'm trying to take it into this Kickstarter. But it's been a hard process. Like, it's going to go live in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, every other day I like have a panic attack where I'm like, this is too much money. I can't ask for this. This is crazy. Ah. And then I'm like, it's going to be good. Like, I really believe in the work. And I feel like Anthony and I have a running kind of joke. Joe Pug was at Space, and I went and chatted with him. I opened for him like 1 million years ago. And I was like, I opened for you 1 million years ago. And he was like, I was talking to him. Anthony had just been on the road with him at the time. And I was like, yeah, Anthony, we're making a record. I just got back from Nashville. And he was like, Anthony, that kid's a lifer. And I texted Anthony, and I was like, and he is, right? Like, yeah. Anthony and I met when he was 14.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we met because my best friend, they both grew up in Westchester. And so I met him at a house show when he was still in high school.
Wow.
And, I've known him he played at my wedding when I walked down the aisle with another dear friend, Emily Price. Like, they played at like he's just been in my life for such a long time as a dear friend. And I've always thought like musical genius, as we all know. Right. And, to hear Joe call him a lifer, I texted him and I was like, hey, Joe Pug and I just had this great conversation about you. And he says, you're a lifer. And Anthony goes, well, you're a lifer too. And it really like, it's even in the notes it's in my thank you notes to Anthony in the LP. It's like, thank you for bringing these songs to life, and thank you for calling me a lifer. Like, it was like this reminder of like, I think I've had this, especially when you have kids, right? Had this idea of like, well, I'll do this record and then I'll just stop. Like, it just feels so big, and it's so hard to like make shit. It's hard to do anything. And so I feel like I've been like, I'll just do this and then I'll stop. And having that reminder of like, this is a small piece in a long career. And it doesn't have to be like the thing that changes everything. Like, every record is a small change and a small step. And it changed my whole outlook on like putting this record out, honestly.
I love that.
Yeah. The best.
All right. I'm including a link in the Kickstarter. Everybody, you know what to do. If this at all sounds intriguing, support Anna, what she's up to. Come to the summit, see her, get a tarot card reading, maybe buy a tarot card deck by then.
Who knows? The world's our oyster. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. You're the best. I love this. And I appreciate it very much.
All right. That was my chat with Anna. Come to the summit, meet her, take her songwriting class. We'll have a lot of fun. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll have more podcasts coming.